Hello everybody, I'm Scott Robinson and welcome to my temple of music. This is Science-Sonic Laboratories, where I conduct all of my mysterious sonic research. Very honored to be here tonight to present to you some music by the great Charles Mingus. Alright, that's one of Mingus's tricky little tunes. It's one that he rarely played, and nobody else hardly ever plays it. Even the Mingus band on Monday nights, we rarely play it. I'm not sure why. I really like the tune. It's called East Coasting. It's in this book, Charles Mingus, More Than a Fake Book, which Sue Mingus was kind enough to give me years ago. This is available on charlesmingus.com. And I spent a long time practicing out of this book, working through every note of it, listening to every tune, the recordings, and studying, taking notes, making a few little corrections, and it's a world of study, this music. It's kind of endless. I really want to tip my hat to Sue Mingus, who has created this kind of empire of all things Mingus, keeping this music alive, keeping it in the public ear. Very important work. And that work is carried on now by Sarah and Zach and Liz in the office, who are just working all the time on coming up with ways to keep this music alive and kicking, even during this crazy time we're living in now, where we can't play out live anymore. I've been very fortunate to be playing in these Mingus groups. There's several of them since the 1990s, off and on, and it's been an incredible experience. I've learned a great deal. I'm on a couple of the CDs. This is one of them here. I'm sure they're all available on charlesmingus.com. There's even one that I'm on the cover, but I don't play on the album. And that one won a Grammy. But anyway, there's a new one coming out too. We just recorded a few months back a whole lot of material, so keep a watch for what we're doing. There's a PayPal address. I'll put it up on the bottom of the screen for you, where you can donate tonight, which will help the Mingus organization and help me personally, and will help all of the musicians, because there's a pool there that goes to support these kinds of activities like what I'm doing right now. So we appreciate your help and support with that, because we can't perform or do anything now. So I decided to present the musical part of this show here in my laboratory, where I have all my instruments and my sounds. This is where I work on music every night till 4 in the morning. And then after the performing part, I'll be in the house, because this is a separate building here. So I'll be in the house where I can take questions. We have better internet there and better connection. I can take your questions and we can chat, so on. So for right now, we're in the laboratory where there's no distractions. It's just music. And please, if you can, visit the Science-Sonic Laboratory site, sciencesonic.net. You can become a laboratory member, as Sarah is, and we have the Sound of the Month Club, and we're doing all kinds of amazing stuff. You know, we've recorded a lot of things here in this room with Roscoe Mitchell and Marshall Allen. Milford Graves has been in here. There's a lot that we're doing at Science Sonic. So check that out. So that first piece was East Coasting, and now we're going to continue with something that I think will give you a little idea of the possibilities that exist here in the lab. This is a very beautiful ballad by Charles Mingus, Self-Portrait in 3 Colors. Okay, that was kind of fun. Self-portrait in 3 colors. That was my attempt to hastily do an overdubbed piece out here with no click track. Mixed success, I suppose. Anyway, it's a very beautiful piece by Charles Mingus with 3 distinct melodies, each being added to the previous one in successive choruses. The way the band originally recorded it, one instrument plays the main melody all 3 times, and the other instruments come in with the secondary melodies, number 2 and number 3. I decided to try a little differently where the main melody cycles through the 3 instruments. So those instruments were clarinet first, and then euphonium, and then the bass taragato, which is a custom-made Hungarian instrument that I have. I should also, I suppose, point out that it was really self-portrait in 3.5 colors, because I used the euphonium with 2 bells. And I used the small bell, which is a more focused sound, to play the main melody on, and then I switched to the larger bell with a more spread sound for the accompanying melodies. So for the same money, you got 3.5 colors, and a couple of flavors too. That piece is from a really fantastic album from the 50s called Mingus and it has a beautiful piano introduction by my old friend Horace Parlin. I recorded an album with Horace in the 80s. Still haven't done anything with it. It's just sitting. Why? Because I'm a mess. That's why. I hope to have it out one day. Anyway, I think now I'll try something a little bit simpler, although simple can be deceptive, and particularly with Charles Mingus. Nothing's ever as simple as it seems, but this is a relatively simple 12-bar blues called Blue Sea. Here's Charles Mingus' most famous tune. That, of course, was Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, written by the great Charles Mingus as a dedication, a lamentation on the death of the great Lester Young, this gentleman here. I take something like that seriously because my first record that I ever bought in my life was a Lester Young 78 RPM record that I got for 10 cents out of someone's basement, and it changed my life. A very important player. Mingus obviously understood the significance of this man who was supremely individualistic and came out in the 30s. His very first recording date was absolutely astonishing, And he paved the way for many, many players down the road who all played completely different from one another, but really came out of Lester Young's thing. So it's a very heartfelt tribute to Lester Young. Joni Mitchell wrote lyrics to it later on, but they don't have that much to do with Lester Young. When I play this piece, I always think about Lester Young and his music and what he stood for and what he gave us. And I think that's what Mingus had in mind. It's a very interesting composition because I always thought of it as a ballad, and you know, years ago, it suddenly hit me that it was a 12-bar blues. It just doesn't sound like a blues. It doesn't sound like a 12-bar form. That's one of the magical things about this music. The masters can make high notes sound low. They can make fast tempos sound slow. And somehow Mingus is able to make what seems like a 17-bar tune or something. It's really just a 12-bar blues when you sit down and look at it, but the way the phrasing is divided up, you could swear it's longer than that. It's very unusual. It's like one of those optical illusions. Which line is longer, you know? And this one seems way longer than that one until you measure it and you realize they're the same. And it's the context of it that makes it seem longer. It's a very fascinating tune. It's not easy to play because the structure of it is kind of not what you're used to on a regular 12-bar blues. Goodbye Pork Pie Hat for Lester Young. All right, thank you very much for being here for our Mingus Mondays show. Please stick around right after the music for the question and answer session. Appreciate you being here. And now I'm going to do something I've wanted to try for a very long time. Oh!
You're listening to the great sounds of Scott Robinson. My name is Sarah. It's my honor to be here with you today, celebrating the music of Charles Mingus with the one and only Scott. As Scott already mentioned, we have a PayPal link that goes to a pool for all the musicians in the band. That's the Mingus Dynasty, the Mingus Orchestra, and the Grammy-winning Mingus Big Band. Check that link in the comments, please. Anything you can contribute is greatly appreciated right now. Join our newsletter at charlesmingus.com. And we're going to take some questions. So if you have any inquiries for Scott, drop them in the comments. Well, to start us off, Scott, this is something I've been wondering watching you do this. I mean, this is just so exciting. Do you? I know you spend a lot of time with this music. Do you, and especially making this video, do you feel like Mingus music falls differently on different instruments, or do you experience it in different ways?
Well, you know, I generally play tenor in the Mingus bands most of the time. I used to play a lot more baritone, and I kind of got away from that. The tenor is home base for what I do. The other instruments are more for fun. I could never sit in the trumpet section of the band or something. I wouldn't survive. Tell you that. So, but you know, in doing a solo project like this, I have all of these instruments, and they're all sounds. Each one is a voice, and it's like a color, like self-portrait in 3 colors. You know, I chose 3 colors, 3.5 colors for that. So it's like a painter will have a lot of colors on their palette, and that's how I look at it. You know, it's not really for show, but I had a little fun with that, I have to admit.
Yeah. So someone asked, do you approach Mingus music differently than other composers?
No, music is always, you know, Mingus, as great as he was, isn't the real boss. The real boss is the music goddess, what I think of as the goddess of music. She knows what she wants, and that's what I'm trying to answer to all the time. So whether it's Mingus or anything else, I mean, Mingus listened to the goddess, you know, and she got what she needed to get out of him. So I want to be subservient to her wishes as well. And I want her to get out of me whatever she thinks she can use, you know. And she's very open-minded. She's a great boss to work for. So she finds a use for a lot of different things. And when you're feeling upset or even angry or something, that's all food for music. She says, yeah, give me some more. I know what to do with that. Give me some more of that, you know. So I always feel like I'm answering to that rather than Charles Mingus. However, we always need to approach music from a position of humbleness and respect. And that means respect for the composer. but every composition is an open door, you know. You can go into that room and you can find a way to make yourself comfortable. That, you know, if you can find yourself in there somewhere, then it's a good piece for you to play. But when I choose pieces to perform, I'm always listening. Am I in there somewhere? It's my being somewhere in there. If I can find myself in there and find a voice and hear a voice, then I want to play that piece.
That's so interesting you describe it that way. I just heard James Newton the other day describe, I think he was saying it in reference to Mingus's tempos and styles, but he said the same, something similar, that Mingus's music is an open door that you can walk into, and a space, you know, where you move around the room.
Yeah, yeah. I think of music sometimes as a place more than a thing.
We had a couple requests. If you don't mind, do you mind to identify some of the instruments you were playing in your video?
Yeah, I think I identified most of them as I played them, but besides the trumpet and the trumpet with a Dennis Wick wooden mute, I love that mute.
Yeah.
And the tenor, the I guess what I didn't identify, I had the bass targato, but then I have the contrabass one, which is larger. It's like a big tree trunk, like a utility pole. Um, that was the really long wooden one, which is the length of a baritone sax, but made of wood, custom made for me, partly to my own design, by a gentleman in Hungary. And then I had the giant contrabass sax. It's a huge thing. There was the double bell euphonium, something called a normophone, which I don't know why it's called that, but it's a German thing with a it's like a valve trombone but shaped like a tenor sax. So I had that. I don't know what else. Did I leave anything out? Slide trombone.
Symbols.
Very ill-advised. I don't play slide trombone.
Yeah, you've got a lot of toys back in the lab.
Too many toys to make.
Yeah, it's so much fun. So much fun hearing you hearing you explore biggest music in your natural element.
That's why it was, you know, it was good to do it back there because here in the house, it's, you know, that's where the music gets made. I'm out there till 4 or 5 every morning. It's just, I don't get enough sleep.
Yeah, yeah. We had a couple more questions about the instrument. Someone asked how you started working with the bass saxophone, the large, and that was amazing, by the way, Moan. But yeah, someone asked about the bass saxophone, how you started with that. Um, yeah. And the first time that you played slide trombone in public.
I don't, let's forget about slide trombone. Let us not speak of such things.
Okay.
There are people who really actually play that instrument, you know.
Yeah.
These things I use for what I can do with them, you know. They're tools. Uh, a woodworker may be more skilled with certain tools than others, you know.
Yeah.
Tools are only used for certain specific situations. So I use instruments like that for when I can, like I say, I could do that.
Yeah. Another color on the palette.
I wouldn't try to play East Coasting on that thing. I'd probably do that. What was the question again?
Oh.
Oh, the bass sax. Yeah. Well, the really big, tall one that's bigger than me is the contrabass sax. Very, very rare.
Yeah.
And the one I played, Pork Pie Hat, that's the bass sax, which is half the size of the really big one. And my high school had a bass sax, so I was sax since I was a little kid, like
Wow.
really seriously playing it every day. You know, I used to lug it back and forth from school, and I've loved the bass sax since boyhood.
Yeah. Amazing. You talked a little bit about it was really interesting listening to you talk about, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat and the blues. It's always, I mean, in my observation, Mingus has always been a master manipulator of the blues, and absolutely, it's the, what he did with the forms of the songs. So I was just, delighted that you touched on that. It's, because it's something I get so interested in the composition and the structures of his music. It's, um,
It's a very interesting
yeah,
structure. I mean, he did a whole album of blues, but I don't think that's on it. It's
yeah,
very deceptive blues. It seems like there's more information in it than could possibly fit into 12 bars.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
It reminds me of Mel Lewis, the great drummer Mel Lewis. I used to play with him many, many times at the Village Vanguard, and we toured together. And he was a master at somehow he could take 4 beats that each sounded like they were this wide. You could fit them into a measure this size, 4 of them. And I used to just go, how do you do that? It just doesn't. It's some kind of magic.
Nothing extraneous. Yeah,
There's 4 of them in this much space.
yeah.
Never figured. It just seemed like magic to me. But music has that magical. Music is a kind of a form of magic.
It really is. Can you talk a little bit about, have you gained any inspiration from Mingus music as a composer of your own material?
I thought you were going to ask me if I gained any weight. I think a lot of us have gained a little bit of weight lately.
Oh, we're all guilty. I didn't notice.
Have I gained anything as a composer?
Has Mingus inspired you as a composer?
Oh, of course.
Your own projects. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, his fearlessness.
Yeah, yeah.
He had many, many skills. He was a great bass player. He had a beautiful, natural, big round tone. He had a great sound on the instrument. And for all his faults, he was a very good band leader in his own way. I don't want to excuse some of the things that are known to have happened.
Yeah, yeah. With a full personality.
We need to remind ourselves that imperfect people make great art. That's important because right now we're in a time where I fear that we're in danger of losing cultural greatness because of the people who made it and their imperfections. We got to be careful we don't lose all the symphonies and all the movies and all the music and all the operas because 90% of it is made by very flawed people in certain ways. Mm-hmm. So, we had to separate the great art. It's bigger than people. It's bigger than any of us. Art. It comes from somewhere else, and that we need to cherish that and respect that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Mingus was a great leader despite his faults because he knew how to pick amazing musicians that brought his compositions to life, and they didn't play in the way that you would expect them all to play. And look at all the whole parade of incredible players he had through his band, just the saxophone players.
So many unique voices, yeah.
Eric Dolphy and Clifford Jordan did some great stuff. Kind of an unspoken player. He did some wonderful stuff with Mingus and of course Jack McLean. What he did, and there's a tenor player, Bobby Jasper, Bobby Jones. Nobody knows anything about Bobby Jones. Mm-hmm. He's great, and he's done a few Mingus things. Long hair guy. Nobody knows really whatever happened to him. Somehow Mingus found these people, these very personable. He found Jack Walrath and George
Adams.
George Adams. Thank you. Very personable players that brought his music to life. That's important as a composer. Writing music is one thing. Getting it played,
yeah,
that's a lot of times the hardest part.
Yeah.
That.
A lot of great voices and unique personalities to go through his band. And I mean, I think that's tradition has continued. You know, Sue kept that going with the big band and the dynasty. I know you. I mean, you've been involved with the bands for a long time, and have known a lot of great folks like Kenny Drew Jr. Did you know in John Stubblefield?
Yeah, that's how I started in the band. I
Yeah.
started out in the '90s at Fez,
Mm-hmm.
subbing for John Stubblefield, and subbing for Stubblefield and Steve Slagle and Ronnie Cooper. So I played almost every sax chair in that band in those days, and I was just in awe of all these amazing players.
Yeah.
This trumpet, I'm like, who is this guy? You know, from Russia. He's just playing. It's ridiculous what he plays.
Yeah.
That's where I met him. You know, it's just incredible the tradition of strong players still today coming through that band. I met Helen Sung from playing in the band, and
Yeah.
she ended up playing in my band. She's on this
Yeah. She's on your record.
record, yeah.
I love that record.
Of course, Dave Karkowski. I went to school with in the '70s.
Yeah.
I wasn't getting into much until suddenly there he is in the Mingus thing, and we're doing that. So it's like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a couple more questions. What are your thoughts on Mingus's ability to make political statements with his compositions and orchestrations?
I figured the political angle would come up at some point. Um, I've generally, other than this thing I recently did, 8 minutes, 46 seconds, I did a video on the bass saxophone. As soon as I heard that number, as soon as I saw what had happened, and before all uh, before most of these demonstrations and things had gotten going, I made a response to that, and I put it out there, and I got a lot of beautiful reaction, and I also got some hate mail.
Mm.
And that was my only foray into anything overtly political in music. I've generally stayed away from that. However, I respect someone like Mingus uh, for why not say, okay, I have this power, I have this music, and this music reaches people, and if there's something that needs to be cried out about, why not? Because as I said before, music, everything is food for music. Everything, love, anger, nature, birds, um, stress, overwork, all of it is food for music. Uh, so why not, uh, not just politics, but your beliefs about what's right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a little kid, I heard fables of Faubus, and it just knocked me out. I had never heard anything like it, and I had never heard anybody just yell like that
Yeah.
and just call somebody out like this. It's an incredible thing. It's powerful, and yet there's humor in it too. And he's going, Daddy, give me a handful that are ridiculous, Daddy. And Danny rattles off all these names, Danny Richmond, and then he goes, why are they so sick and ridiculous, Danny? It's actually it reminds me of Jelly Roll Morton or something.
Yeah.
Sidewalk Blues. What are you doing in the road? Get out of the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sidewalk Blues. They used to do this kind of banter in music,
Yeah.
jazz music in the 20s, and everybody kind of got away from that. So Mingus comes along. I mean, that's one of the great qualities of his music, is it kind of brings back a lot of what was great about the music of the 20s that we had kind of gotten away from. Collective improvisation, for example. I mean, on that thing Moaning, that's just me screwing around trying to keep the time together with with no click track.
Yeah.
But in that piece, you hear the collective improvisation, it almost has a little bit of a New Orleans flavor there for a minute, going through that part. So he kind of brought some of that back, and he brought back some of the banter and shouting out encouragement and yelling at the other players and engaging them by name, while they're recording. Daddy, what about this and that? I like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And another level of life to it. Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
We have a couple questions that go together. So I'm going to ask them together if you don't mind. How has Mingus influenced your playing? And was Eric Dolphy an inspiration at all?
Dolphy's a big inspiration. I think the first thing I heard of well, it might have actually been Fables of Faubus. I'm not sure. But another thing I heard by Dolphy that had a big impact on me when I was a kid, because I listened to this music, I've been a jazz guy since I was really a kid. And, there's this incredible solo Dolphy plays on a Max Roach thing called Mendacity. I guess it's from the Freedom Now suite, I think, or it's from one of those Max Roach suites, which is also political. And it's this piece called Mendacity, and Abby Lincoln sings this short little lyric, which is basically all about politicians like say whatever and then do something else because they're all lying, and then the whole thing kind of stops and hangs on this really scary chord. And then Dolphy comes out of it, and it's just breathtaking. I'm going to cry talking about it. The first note that he plays, it's a note that just grabs you by the shoulders like this. And then he launches into this thing at once he's got your attention. He just grab the music. You can feel it just come and grab you like this. Then it launches into this thing, and then you're, by golly, paying attention. It's maybe the most incredible first note of a solo that I've ever heard, and I never forgot it when I heard that when I was a kid, and I just said, wow, this stuff can be powerful,
Yeah.
literally gripping.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm missing live music right now, and that's the exact feeling. It's, when you see, this, it pulls you in. And Mingus music, has exploring Mingus music influenced your style at all, your improvisation style?
Yeah, I mean, everything influences everything.
Yeah.
It's a very additive world I live in. Everything gets added, nothing gets taken away.
Everything is food.
Yeah, that's why it gets complicated. But Mingus music, I've been through phases with it. Like when I was a college student at Berklee College of Music, my roommate, who became a lifelong friend and colleague, Julian Thayer. He's a scientist now. He's Dr. Julian Thayer, but he's also a bass player. And we've done a lot of recording here in the lab. He's on Science Sonic records and stuff. He showed up at the Mingus Changes album, Changes 1 and 2, which I didn't have. I had Mingus at Carnegie Hall and some other things, but he had those. We had very complementary record collections.
Yeah.
Fun right from the start. He was my roommate. So, I absorbed that stuff, and those two Changes albums really had an effect on me.
Yeah.
And later on, of course, playing in the band, and I was forced to address this music much more seriously than I ever had. And when Sue gave me the book, that fake book, it wasn't right away, but eventually I took that book and I really just went from beginning to end, and I worked my way through, and I played every note, and I even went over to the piano, which I don't play a note of piano, but just try to figure out where there were written voicings. I would peck those out, and I just really worked on every note of every measure, and that I went through the whole book and listening to each piece, multiple versions of it, of from Mingus recordings from different eras and stuff like that. So it became a daily work thing for about I don't know, I think it was about 5 months I spent.
Yeah. Wow, and it shows. If anybody's not sure, Scott's talking about the Mingus Fake book. It's available at Hal Leonard. Shout out to everybody in the bands. Hi, everybody. We miss you guys, and we miss we miss the audience and everybody.
I miss all of you, and I've watched. Those of you who've done these shows, I haven't seen them all, but I've watched a number of them, and it's really great. And I want to say everybody should tune in next week for my really good friend and great musician, Jason Marshall, is doing next week.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, he's a giant. And Jason is really something. So I'm looking forward to that show. Everybody should check him out.
Yeah. We Alex Terrier, alto saxophonist Alex Terrier is with us, and he wants to ask you, what I love is your sound and your originality of the melodic lines you improvise. What is going on in your mind when you improvise? How are you so original and creative?
Gosh. It's funny because, I'll tell you something honestly, when I was playing East Coasting, at one point I thought of Alex and I thought, he would just tear these changes up. Truly, I had that thought. I'm in awe of all my colleagues and they all scare me to death. All for the good,
All for the good.
It works out here. I came to New York to be around people who play great all around me and stuff. Yeah, as far as thinking melodically, well, as I mentioned, I came up on Lester Young and Louis Armstrong. Those were my two first jazz heroes, and then Eddie Harris right on the heels of that. And then from there, I got into everything. But that's a pretty good place to start if you want to be a melodic player. I think Lester Young. A lot of people tip their hat to Lester Young, but I'm not sure if they all listen.
Well, speaking of Prez, someone else or someone, our librarian Theodore wants to know, what's your favorite Lester Young solo?
Oh, well, of course, here's one of the amazing things is that his very first recorded solo is ridiculously amazing. It's that I learned the Lady Be Good solo in G, and Shoe Shine Boy. I mean, he started out just great. Not everybody does, some people work their way up, but he started out just amazing. And Armstrong the same way, his first recordings, just very, 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 very powerful.
Yeah. Well, we've got just a couple more. If anybody has any last questions, make sure you get them in. How do you manage to move so easily and confidently between so many different styles of jazz? You sound at home in all of them.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear. As I said before, you got to find yourself in the music. If you find yourself in the music, then there's a home for you there. You just got to go in and kind of ingratiate yourself,
Yeah.
as you're going into unfamiliar territory. You got to be a good traveler. Good travelers are people that can go all around the world, go to places they've never been, cultures they've never been in, language they don't speak, and somehow make it okay, you know, make other people relax about them, and you know, there's a gift to kind of finding your place in this situation and that situation. So in music, if you want to go beyond style, somebody asked before about style, and I don't think too much about styles. It's I think about music and finding a place in it that's respectful both to the music itself, to the place I'm visiting, and to my own self. If I go to someone's home, I want to be respectful of their home, and this is their place where they live, and I'm in their home. I don't want to just come in and throw stuff like I might do here. You know, I'm not going to throw my stuff in the corner. No, I'm in someone's home. I want to be respectful of that. But at the same time, I have to be myself. I'm not going to go in and act like something I'm not so that so that they'll think I'm cool. I have to be myself. So balancing those two forces, that's what we do all the time in music. At least that's what I'm doing all the time in music. And that's how, if I'm able to find that balance, then I can be at home in a lot of different places without feeling that either the music or myself is being compromised or made subservient somehow. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
And you have to love it. If you travel well, you love people and you love places and you love cultures and you love foods and all of that, and you love different birds and you love things that are different. You get a kick out of not being home, uh, finding a new home. So you need to have that ability to travel well and visit a lot of cool places in music.
Yeah, yeah. You certainly are well traveled, and you and Sue both. I remember when she gave you the recommendation for Australia down to the bottom of the world.
You gotta go down to the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And she's right. It was like going down yeah, it was good. That was a good tip.
Yeah. uh, someone asked, well, I'm going to rephrase this question, but was this your first time uh, playing with yourself on Mingus music? Someone asked if you've ever attempted to play Don't Be Afraid, the Clown's Afraid Too by yourself.
Well, I've never played that. You know, you asked before about confidence, and I didn't really answer that. But I'm a pretty insecure, scared person an awful lot of the time. And every time I go to a gig, I keep asking my wife, shouldn't this get easier at some point? You know, it's still, you know, I go to the gig, like, what if I don't know the tunes, or what if my sound is no good? And it's just something that a lot of us, I guess, struggle with.
Yeah.
So,
Exploring inner and outer space.
trying to do this thing, it was a lot of fun, but it was tough. I didn't have any click, and
Yeah.
all I was using was this little video camera, and I'm trying to overdub, but it's not a recording, it's not a mixer or anything. It was a little weird, but it was fun.
Well, you surprised all of us. It's pleasantly, delightfully. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our audience questions. This might be a good time to ask about your hat.
I've been waiting for somebody to ask about that. I only wear it for very special occasions. So.
I know.
No, thank you for asking. But this hat is something I wanted to do since I was in college. I said, what if you took reeds? You know, these are all reeds, saxophone and clarinet reed. These are all tenor reeds up here. For those of you out there that don't know what a reed is, well, there's some around here somewhere, but it's just a little sliver of wood. It's what makes the sound. when you put it on the mouthpiece, this little sliver of wood creates the sound. And I'm sort of reverential about reeds because when you play an instrument, people think they're hearing the saxophone, but what you're really hearing is the vibration of that little piece of wood. That's what actually creates the sound. And then the instrument shapes it and amplifies it. So all of these reeds, I've got piles of them because I don't throw any of them away because to me, they're like artifacts. I've saved them all since I think I have nearly every reed I've ever played on.
Wow. Wow.
Some of my ride-on, like,
Yeah.
I played in Paris with Chet Baker, in 1986 or something. I'll write this stuff on there. I got to play with Stanley Turrentine, all these special events or recordings that I've done. So for years, I wanted to make this hat, and I finally did it for my record cover because I said, I'm doing an all tenor record for the first time. And I want to make that stupid hat I've been talking about for decades. And so I did it. I spent 2 weeks on it.
It looks good.
The album won Best New Release in Jazz Times.
Yeah. It's a great album. I love it.
So yeah, I'm kind of proud of the hat. Here you can see it's got all sizes of reeds in it.
It's even got a double reed as a feather.
Yeah, as a feather, that's a cerusophone reed made by Van Doren. It's one of the only, might be the only company that makes them.
Wow.
It was an engineering feat, especially trying to get the shape in the brim. I don't know if you can see, but it goes down in the front and up a little bit in the back. That wasn't easy, let me tell you.
Wow. Well, Scott, this has been an honor. This has just been great after listening to you in the big band, the Mingus Big Band for so many years, and following your own music. It's so exciting for me to be here talking to you. And I think I speak for everybody, but we all can't wait to hear the album with Horace Parlan.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for asking me to do this. I was really happy to do it, and as you can see, I kind of poured myself into it. I was up till 5 a.m, a couple nights there, trying to put this thing together. And I also want to thank everybody who tunes in because we make this stuff, we create this music, and we put out these albums, and we do all this stuff. It goes out into the world. There's nobody on the other end. Like they say, crickets. So thank you for listening, everybody that listens to this music. And please, if you're not familiar with the original recordings of Charles Mingus, please go check them
Please
out.
go back and check out Charles Mingus. Yeah.
What I do, is a treasure trove of music, along with Lester Young and Sun Ra and everybody else I mentioned. But also, I want to thank you, Sarah, because you're one of the good people out here.
Thank you.
Start that created this thing and has made a big impact out here. This music on little kids all around the world that are hip to this music now that never would have been. I have to tip my specially made reed hat to Sue Mingus and to you.
Yes.
And Jack and to Liz and to Roberto, everybody who's keeping, and all the great musicians. And Jason Marshall's going to be on next week.
Please everybody check out the Mingus Institute also. We've been doing educational events. We host an annual Charles Mingus Festival for high school students. So, check it out.
Are we done? I'll give a little musical.
Yeah, show us the jazzophone.
I'll give a musical sign off with one of my most ridiculous instruments.
Thank you, everybody, for joining. We wish you stay safe. Please wash your hands, stay safe. Everybody, stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.